Feels like the only thing you really hear about regarding the Oklahoma City Thunder these days is how shamelessly they're tanking. And despite that, they are 4-3 to start the year and have a top 5 defense. This isn't really new or a flash in the pan. Last season, before like they just went full tank mode late in the year and shut everyone down, they were a top 10 defense through about February, and they're a top 5 defense through the first 7 or so games of the season. It is Wednesday, November 2nd, when I'm recording this, and we're gonna break down OKC's defense because I think it's not simple, and it's not, they don't defend the way that other elite defenses defend. It all starts with Lou Dort. And while I don't think Dort is an elite defender for a good amount of reasons, this team doesn't really have an elite defender. It all starts with Dort setting the tone with his on-ball pressure. And we're going to start with a foul here where Dort, like Franz is coming off of this screen. Dort is defending the ball screen and just jets at the ball. Like, he absolutely dives at that ball. And then, again, look at the kind of pressure that OKC is putting on right here in the full court. Obviously, now they're down and they're trying to come back. But this is something they do kind of like relatively often compared to most teams. They're putting on a lot of pressure. And again, even beyond their on-ball guys, Aaron Wiggins has been a really, really impressive and solid on-ball defender this year. We see Lou Dort being super aggressive and forcing another foul. But I promise it's going to get better. Oklahoma City's defense being so good is a product of a couple things. But majorly, they do not give up transition opportunities. They force you to play in the half court, and they force you to score on them while they're set up. Oklahoma City forces the most turnovers in the league. They're aggressive, and they don't turn the ball over themselves and give you easy pass opportunities. Based on a bunch of different things like frequency, points per possession, field goal percentage, Oklahoma has the best transition defense in the league so far. Better than teams like Phoenix and LA and Boston, who have been awesome on defense. Oklahoma City is killing it in defending transition, which is so important because that's such like an easy source for points, especially for like bad young teams tend to give up a lot of transition points just because they're turning the ball over and they're not organized. But watch how OKC organizes here as they're not set up at all. Franz is pushing an early offense. Watch how they communicate, how they move, how they talk, how they connect, and how they eventually force a bad pass. We're going to watch this again and break it down a little bit. It all starts with Darius Baisley pointing out assignments. When someone drives and when a cut opens up, they swarm Josh Giddey, immediately sinks down. Trey Mann is in good help position here. He's able to close out to R.J. Hampton, who is on this drive. Ousmane Dieng steps up. Josh Giddey sits in between these guys, cuts off the easy pass, and again, they force a turnover. This really impressive connectedness, again, is why they have the 5th best defense by defensive rating in the league so far. And unlike these other teams who have elite defenders, Brook Lopez, Giannis Lopez has arguably been the best defender in the league. LeBron, AD, Mobley, Jared Allen, Mikal Bridges, Paul George, the list goes on. The Thunder don't really have any of those guys. I don't think they have an all-NBA level defender at all. I think some people probably consider Dort an all-NBA level defender, but I definitely don't feel that way just because of his off-ball limitations. But the Thunder really don't have like an elite defender, and they don't have an elite rim protector, which we're going to get into, which makes what they do all the more impressive. And as I mentioned, like even outside of these kind of comeback situations, it starts with their aggression, with having guys like Aaron Wiggins that can pick up in transition. And, for every foul he gets, Lou Dort will be aggressive and nab a steal as well. Because, he is so just generally hunty and pesky, and his timing is good, and his hands are good, even if, he is going to generate some fouls. And because of how well the Thunder are rotating and connecting, they have empowered Dort to take risks and play aggressive and pressure at half court here. And even though he gets beat initially and goes for this reach as well, The Thunder are able to organize and rotate, and Dort himself is going to snag this block as well. This is like probably his best off-ball play of the year. He's like, they're all swiping for steals, which is just kind of what they do. It's not the conservative, drop type system you see in LA or Milwaukee, because they just don't have the personnel to do that. But what they do have the personnel to do is to fly around and be aggressive. Again, you see Darius Baisley playing hard on this side of Wood, getting into his airspace. Wood spins off to create an advantage, but Shai immediately slides down. Isaiah Joe immediately slides down. Aaron Wiggins, who is one of the best defenders on this team for sure, does a beautiful job initially feigning an X out to Dinwiddie and then retreating to Dorian Finney-Smith. They pressure, they're sliding, they're in the gaps, and they eventually force a shot that they want at the end of the clock, a long three-pointer. Just watch how early everyone is on rotating to stop these drives. Even when the ball is moving, the Thunder never stop moving with the ball. They never stop sliding. All 5 players, and they don't have a player bigger than like 6'7", 6'8" on this lineup. They're all sliding. Isaiah Joe is early. Wiggins has done so much work on this possession. He, starts the possession with that X out we showed earlier, and he finishes the possession with that really impressive closeout as well. This team is really, really aggressive in their one pass away help. They do a really good job taking advantage of bad spacing, is something you'll notice a lot. Like this spacing is really dreadful with 2 players posting up like a second away from each other, and Dort is going to nab that every single time. Obviously, they don't end up getting the steal there, but watch how aggressive they are digging into gaps. This is the nail, this area, around the elbow. It is an important area because that is where a lot of drives happen. Trey Mann is super early here to cut this drive off. Again, we see Shai really early here after Dort's closeout. It doesn't work, as Dort's closeouts are, an adventure, but that's just part of his aggressive defensive play style. And Shai is eventually able to get a hand on that because, again, he was early in that gap. And whew, we're not talking about Shai's offense, but like, oh my lord, that has just been unbelievable. What can you say about Shai on offense at this point, right? They're so aggressive going over dribble handoffs. You see Baisley shoot this and get a steal and dunk. There are definitely times where this fails, but because of their aggressive helping defense, where guys will like step up, and if Baisley, got beat on a backcoat or whatever, Poku would slide, Wiggins would slide in here to help, and these 2 would be ready to zone the backside. They can kind of be empowered to take those kind of risks as well. The biggest kind of thing with this defense is I'm just so impressed by their communication and their connectedness for a bunch of young players too. There is nobody older than 24 on this roster, and you have a rookie second-year player. It is so wild. They're really good at setting up this shell, which they'll do oftentimes. Look how aggressive they are sitting in these gaps, hands wide. Shai has come all the way over to shade, and when players are able to pass out of these shells, they're so quick responding. This is a perfect X out. And what an X out is, if you're unaware, is when a pass to the weak side happens, the first defender, in this case J-Dub, is going to go to the pass, and then the second defender is going to go to the one pass away, which is Shai. So they effectively form an X in their pathing, and Shai's defensive effort this year has been remarkable, which we'll talk more about later, which was always a problem for him, but his defensive effort being good is great. Again, we see this same kind of shell. And what did I say about bad spacing? Cat is going to try to thread a pass to this cutter, but Giddey is covering to it once with his kind of just positioning here. Shai is tagging down to make this pass impossible. Lou Dort is waving his hand and is active in the perimeter passing lanes, and they're able to nab this ball and get a deflection. It's such an impressive thing, the way that they talk and communicate and shut down these kind of stationary threats. They'll sprinkle in some zone as well, to just kind of bother you with their length. As we see Baisley get a hand on that ball, they don't end up finishing this possession with a steal, but they are able to be aggressive again. Baisley, again, another guy whose closeouts are kind of an adventure, but they're able to force a floater, which is a pretty decent shot as well in that zone. Their players, again, very empowered to use their length and to fish for these deflections. We see Josh Giddey kind of read the hell out of Anthony Edwards right here, who's a bit of a, his playmaking isn't that dynamic, but Giddey kind of knows that this pass isn't an option for Ant, so he can dart to the corner and get this deflection as well, which is really, really good to see because there aren't a lot of weaknesses in terms of this kind of shell. I think Dort, because of his kind of off-ball lapsiness, like he doesn't have this same ability as some other like more cerebral defenders to like zone the off-ball components and to play this weak side role, and that's why you don't really see him doing it that much. You see him at the top of the defense hounding the ball because this just isn't his skill set. I think Dort. This isn't a video about Dort. I think he's very, very good at isolation defending, but is not that good at anything else, which is why I don't think he's like an all-NBA defender, but still like one of the best defenders on this team. And this defensive strategy is bound to give up a lot of penetration, and because of this penetration they give up, they're going to give up a lot of rim attempts. Darius Baisley is like the best they have at this point as like a rim protector. He's been really great this year, stepping up as like this secondary rim protector. He gets up to stuff this Bruce Brown shot, but the rim defense has not been good for Oklahoma City. Maybe somewhat predictably, they are one of the worst teams in the league when it comes to allowing shots at the rim. And let me get that over here. PBP Stats, by the way, excellent website for all things stats. They are giving up a pretty reasonable percentage of the rim, like 64% as well. Their rim frequency, though, is very high. They give up the third most shots at the rim in the league, and I think part of that is just the fact that they don't have a true rim protector. Obviously, Chet Holmgren will and would have helped this a lot, and which is what's like really exciting is that their one true weakness, they have someone waiting. But when they're playing against like really dominant interior guys like Wendell Carter, there's really nothing they can do to stop them from bullying guys like Poku and Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who are just either too short or too small or not strong enough to really contend with these very, very strong offensive players. Especially on switch-ins, they're very susceptible to duck-ins like this where giants like Mo Bamba can just get right in front of the basket, turn, and score. The pick-and-roll defense as well. Again, they're not a traditional sit and drop defense, and this is a good example of why on both fronts. Lu Dort, as I mentioned, while he's great in one-on-one point of attack situations, he really struggles chasing around screens just because of his like general girth and lack of agility. So he's way behind this play, and then Poku really has no chance to provide any vertical threat as a primary defender against, really any lob threat that is just disrespectful. But that's not his role. Poku is like a secondary help defender, and he's being forced to play out of position because of the Thunder's roster limitations, basically, which is the case with a lot of players on this young team that have adapted and done well. Even, smaller-ish players like Franz, who are just awesome touch finishers, can kind of plow right through these Thunder defenders. And even when players like that attack from the perimeter, there just isn't a lot to stop them from using their size and their length and their touch to score. And while Shai is, in good position to contest this and gets his hand right up there, offensive players really just aren't afraid of going straight at the rim against this Thunder team and challenging them right within the circle because they know that they're just probably going to score. They probably are just because of how good or how bad, their rim protection is. It's not all bad though. Like I said, Poku is a really solid secondary rim protector, meaning, when he's not guarding as the primary big man in pick and roll or on an isolation, he can really get over and block shots as a help defender. That was his biggest strength coming out of the draft, and that's probably his biggest strength right now on defense. And then there's Darius Baisley, who is, as we've alluded to, is my defensive MVP for the Thunder this year. I think I tweeted a poll like who is the best defender of the Thunder, and I got a lot of different answers as expected. Mostly Dort, which I did expect. And one person said this, but like the correct cop out answer is Dagnall for like the way he's constructed his defense. But individually, I think Baisley has been the best defender because of his mix of on and off ball goodness. His help defense, again, we see kind of two secondary plays here where Poku comes from the weak side to cut off Zubac initially, and then Baisley comes to clean it up from behind. That is just beautiful help interior defense, especially for a team that is lacking in that primary consistent rim protection. Again, we see that transition get back. Watch Darius Baisley point. They're always communicating, always talking. He calls that ball. They're set up in early offense. They're not allowing any big gaps, and Baisley is able to flip his hips and block Aaron Gordon because he is such an impressive mover at 6'8" or whatever he's actually listed at. We've seen him stick with guys of all sizes this year. Here he gives Luka a lot of trouble on this drive where OKC gave Luka arguably as much trouble as any team has given him this year, and has given this potent Mavs offense, which is one of, if not the best offenses in the league, a ton of issues as well in their overtime win. Even against hyper quick guards like Bones Highland, Baisley was able to slide his feet, flip his hips, stay vertical, stay set, and block this shot with his length. He's not overextending. He's not trying to reach a ton on the ball. He's just trusting his movement skills and his length. And it's really worked out well for him. I would say he's had a very, very, very nice defensive season this year. It's been fun to watch him grow on the end of the ball from someone who's like pretty sporadic and inconsistent to someone who, to me, is the backline anchor of this defense. And definitely not an all defense level player, but is a very good defender nonetheless. I wanted to highlight Ousmane Dieng as well, their rookie who is very raw on offense. But I like his defense coming out, and he has been really solid on defense, probably more solid than I expected. His movement skill at like a true 6'10" is really impressive. Like he totally cuts off this Reggie Jackson drive. And again, there's Baze again getting out to that block. We see the X out again that the Thunder are executing so well and so consistently these days. Dieng's ability to move around screens at this size is really impressive. Like he has the agility to stay attached to Chuma here, to go right through that dribble handoff, to cut off this drive, and then he's going to finish off this play with a really nice closeout after helping on Franz. It's really great stuff, the way that he's active, the way that he's moving, the way that even after his assignment is done, he's still looking to help out his teammates. That's what this Thunder team's defense is really all about. They're so willing and active, helping each other and covering for each other's blind spots and helping each other succeed. Again, like he really can blow through screens, as this is like a kind of this is a slip from Franz, but Ousmane is pressuring, staying with Jalen Suggs, and is able to sit right on and contest that step back three. So he's been really impressive. J-Dub, Jalen Williams has been really impressive for a rookie as well, and the fact that those two are contributors is awesome. And I want to end the video talking about Shai, as everyone seems to be. His defense is, probably the most surprising thing, as Shai has been, at least last year, was like a legitimately very bad defender. He was just mailing it in, not really trying, but Shai has been a crazy off-ball playmaker this year. I don't think his impact is like as high as some other people. Like I wouldn't call him one of like the 2 or 3 best defenders on this team, but his off-ball playmaking, as long as his general effort, has been really good. And it's in tune with the rest of the team. Again, we see Baze do a great job staying in front of Paolo. We see Shai shading here, is able to cut off and block Caleb Houston. He's like averaging a ridiculous like block and steal numbers and block and steal rates, which I would imagine are going to regress. Actually, I'm going to pull it up because I'm curious. I know Shai's like averaging a lot. So yeah, 2.5 steals, 1.3 blocks. And if we go to the rates, like 3 block rate, 3 steal rate, which is probably a little unsustainable, but it's been very, very cool to watch. And he's just so active. Like again, Shai just doesn't let people breathe, and he's able to use that length on defense the same way he does on offense to add value as a finisher. he's using it to add value as a rim defender by not letting these guys get anything off. This is probably my favorite Shai play of the year on defense, where again, the help side stuff is so impressive. We see the shell they create, and when Dwight Powell gets right in the middle, this is a dangerous place to be, and passes out to Luka. Poku isn't much of a threat here, but Shai is able to snag Luka from behind and block this shot. So that's kind of an overall breakdown of this Oklahoma City defense and what they do so well. They are flying around, helping each other out, communicating really well, and stopping transition. Those are the keys for this defense. They're so fun to watch because of that, because of their aggressive nature and the way that they help each other and the way that they rotate. And once this team gets Chet Holmgren back, they're going to be awesome because Chet is an elite primary rim defender, and that is the Thunder's only real significant hole on this defense is their inability to protect the rim consistently. So I hope you learned something. This defense is legit. It has been for a while now. Their offense, stinks, even with Shai being amazing as he is. But this defense is legit, and they're very, very exciting. And the Thunder's future is very exciting as well.